I want to take a moment to encourage the people of God and those who are feeling discouraged or feeling disheartened and really worn out, because I believe one of the critical battles that wars against the people of God is to discourage them, to take the courage out of them so that you lose your sense of hope. And when hope is waning, faith doesn't have a lot to grab onto, because hope is your sense of vision and how you see your day and your future, how you see your life. It's your divine perspective and vision in life, right? And faith is the substance of things hoped for. And many believers are getting taken out through discouragement and being systematically worn out. You need to understand that the thief who comes to steal, kill, and destroy is wanting to steal your heart of being able to overcome. And one of the qualities of living as an overcomer is learning to develop long-term endurance. Many times we shoot out for the quick race or the quick results, and we find that, wow, this is really about the journey. An overcomer is looking at the long picture and realizing this is a marathon. This isn't a 40-yard dash. And so we get caught up in lots of areas that systematically wear us out. And you need to take a step back if you find yourself in that and go, okay, I need to realize the war. There may be a lot of areas where you overcome and are victorious, but there's this slow process of just systematically wear you out that you need to be aware of is taking place in the invisible arena. And you need to arm yourself and be ready. There's a key passage in Scripture in the book of Daniel, actually, where Daniel 7 and verse 25, you can look this up for yourself, where there is a word that gives us insight into the enemy's tactics against the people of God. It says, he, in verse 25 of Daniel 7, he shall speak pompous words against the Most High. So we see there that the enemy, Satan, is the accuser who's going to speak words against God. He's going to accuse him, and he's going to accuse us. He's the accusation is his primary method and thoughts to accuse and condemn, right? But then it says this, he shall persecute the saints of the Most High. That word persecute is an interesting word because it does speak of attacking, but here's the definitions. It speaks of afflicting, to wear out, to wear away, to harass. So it corresponds to a word that means to wear out by use, to use up completely, to become old, to wax old. It's almost like the enemy's trying to cause you to overuse your resources, to burn the candle on both ends, to overwork and to strive so much that in the long term, you just get worn out. And there's a terminology here of waxing old. I mean, could it be that the enemy could be systematically trying to prematurely age us, right? And just wearing us out. And that produces lethargy and discouragement and heaviness and weariness. And then your body receives that, and the cells in your body get that stress and get that discouragement and that depression. I mean, Paul told us in Galatians, don't be weary in well-doing, because in due season. See, the key of weariness is realizing due season. We're moving towards something bigger. And I must learn how to run a long-distance race. Training for a 40-yard dash is different than training for a long marathon. You have a different perspective. You difference in what you're feeling and what you're going through. And so but you need to understand that you could win in a lot of areas of your life, but if the enemy can just get you weary, get you tired. Do you notice when discouragement is at the highest is when we're tired? And many believers I run into, and even in my own journey, they struggle with knowing how to recover and refresh their hearts. You got to realize there's a war. We never think of like the enemy could be getting us to overwork even in ministry. It's like, hey, you want to serve people? I'm going to make sure that you find your identity in what you do so you don't know who you are. And then I'm going to really just keep challenging you to push the pedal to the metal. And anytime you take time off, I'm going to make you feel guilty for even doing that. I'm going to keep you in this cycle to wear you out, because then you'll be more cynical, more bitter, more angry, more hard-hearted. And in the long run, it'll take you out. Maybe not tonight, but in the long run, it'll take you out. And I want to exhort you, because there's some tactics the enemy will use to wear you out and to deeply discourage you. I'm just going to give you some of them, because we could really branch this out into a lot of areas. One is to train you to live in constant busyness. I believe, personally, one of the big predominant demonic forces over many productive kind of nations is chronic busyness. Fill in every moment with something you're constantly doing. Make rest something you feel guilty about, and keep you in the go, 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 performing, achieving, doing. And then when you do really well, get a lot of applause, so it gives you that dopamine rush. So then you have to live off of that now. And you keep seeking that for that next burst and that next hit of that affirmation. Meanwhile, you don't feel God's unconditional love, and you're in this cycle of burnout. I think a second thing he'll do is he'll get you to focus your identity primarily, your identity being based on what you do. Do. So you have trouble with stillness. You have trouble with unconditional love. You have trouble receiving. And it leads to cycles of burnout. So I think third, the enemy will train you to live a burnout lifestyle where your output drastically overrides and overexceeds the input of refreshment and receiving from God. So then you live in a lifestyle where you're actually giving out stuff of things that you're not even applying anymore. So you lose that sense of stillness and simplicity of receiving, because you just respond to everything and do. So your output drastically overrides and exceeds beyond measure your input. And then when you try to slow down and get input, you feel guilty. I should be doing more. I should be doing more. You hear those thoughts? You hear those temptations? Do more. Come on. The reason you are where you are is because you got to do more. Another thing I think is that the enemy will eventually condition you to get used to living out of an empty tank. I find most people are living out of burnout. They're not headed to burnout. You're already in burnout. There's a lack of refreshment and relational enjoyment in God. And one of the problems is our modern church culture emphasizes serving at the detriment of receiving. So much so that if you don't serve at this intense level, anytime you look to try to receive, it's portrayed as though you're selfish. So the whole thing is kind of twisted, because true ministry is just giving out who you are and what you've received. That's all ministry is. That's not the ministry I see modeled, though. I see the ministry modeled. Tell other people stuff, whether you're, whether it's even having its work in your life or not. Who cares? Just give it out. Do. And if you're tired, just the antidote is to serve more. In fact, so much of our connection relationally is that we serve together, or we do things together. Without the doing together, it's like, what's left? Do we know how to just be with each other without there having to be a mission all the time? I love mission. We got to be about that. We have a mission God's given us. But true long-term ministry without the effect of the enemy persecuting us, wearing us out, wearing us down, is learning to live out of a healthy place of identity, living from what you've received from God, and just giving out. Silver and gold I may not have, but what I have, I give to you. That's powerful ministry. Now we're not being hypocrites. You don't have to worry about being a poser. You don't have to worry about this whole, this thing that accuses your thoughts, because you're never trying to be something that you're not. You just give out of what God's done in your life. Another way the enemy will do is he won't allow you just don't know how to have a yes and don't know how to have a no. You struggle with boundaries. And so you live in a place where you feel bad saying no. So you end up just saying yes all the time. And Jesus, a lot in his ministry, said no, stepped away, walked away from the crowd, just to be alone. There's a rhythm God's called us to live in. It's called the place of rest that actually has a great deal of resistance from the system of the enemy, which is in this world, that is in the church. We value performers and achievers so much, so at the detriment of being healthy and learning to emotionally slow down and just relate to God who's not in a hurry. Beware of this, folks. Beware of this, and understand too that when you truly want to walk in it, there's going to come resistance, because a big part of the masses have sacrificed receiving on the altar of just constant doing. And then deep down inside, they're empty, unfulfilled, and in a burnout lifestyle. And God's not called us to that. So I pray you get sobered and awaken to this in your life so you can break free, live the overcoming life. I pray you'll jump into the heart healing journey with me and find your own place in the process of where God has you at, so you can live awakened, healed, and transformed, and begin to share those things with people in your life. If this video has been a blessing to you, or someone shared it with you, or you find it in one of my free resources, would you take a moment to consider donating towards the ministry work that we're trying to do and what God's called us to do? We're just being who he's made us to be, his sons and daughters, and just helping others to enter into that same grace and that same love and that same freedom. But God bless you. I'll see you in the next resource.